It's the Easter holidays, and my children have got 2 weeks off school, which means one thing and one thing only in this household, that it is their sole purpose to stop Daddy reading a single book. Yes, I don't know if that happens in your household as well, but it inspired me to do a video on how I do things a bit differently during the 2 weeks and 6 week holidays, because I can't sit down in the daytime and read the fantasy books that I usually read when the kids are at school. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big advocate for spending time with my kids. I absolutely love it. I love my children more than anything on this planet, truly. However, I had my first daughter 14 years ago. As I've matured as a parent, I have learned that it's important to try and focus on me as well. It's important that I have my own time, but it's also important that my kids know how to entertain themselves and don't expect me to be in the back garden all the time, kicking footballs backwards and forwards, patting tennis balls backwards and forwards, watching my 4-year-old son run from one side of the room to the other and back while he's headbutting the sofa going, Dad, watch me, watch me. I'm like, dude, I've watched it 57 times now. It's the same thing. It's not changed. You've not got any better at headbutting the sofa. And I just try still and just find a bit of time for me. So this is what tends to happen. I'm like, right, I'm going to sit down now and read for half an hour. I'm like, yeah, of course, Dad. We understand. You do you, boo-boo. I'm like, right, cool. Let me sit down. Dad, how fast do wolves run? Dad, how big are trees? It's like, oh, fucking ask Alexa. Just ask Alexa. Oh, please. Look, I love my kids, but there comes a time in the day where I'm kitted out and I need a bit of me time. So I still like to read books. I just can't read the fantasy books that I usually read, because some of these chapters as a slow reader can take me an hour. If I got halfway through them and then have to start asking Alexa how fast wolves run, it distracts me. I have to start it again later on in the day and it's half an hour wasted. So these are kind of different kind of books that I tend to pick up during holidays. I still read my ongoing series, whatever I'm reading at the time, but I tend to read it at night time. I might get through a chapter or two. But my current situation that I'm in, being the kids' holidays, inspired me to do this video for two reasons. Firstly, because I'm sick and tired of listening to my 11-year-old daughter singing, Meet me at the appetite. So I needed a break from that. And secondly, because I thought I'd just maybe help you people and give you some ideas for if you are amidst a children's holiday and you can't get into your long chaptered books, some recommendations of books that have maybe got shorter chapters, books that are easier to consume, books that you can step away from and come back to when you're in a distractive environment. Is that even a real word? I don't care. We're using it. Right, so I'm going to talk to you first about the books that I have recently finished and I'm currently reading, which is book 1 and book 2 of the Farseer trilogy. Then we'll go through some book mail, and then we'll go through the recommendations for books that I usually read when I just can't focus. So I'll get straight into it. The book that I finished most recently is The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Before I talk to you about why this is my favourite book of 2025, actually one of my favourite books ever, I want to remind you that reading's subjective. I'm always careful when I do reviews online because I am going to absolutely pipe this book off now, and it's going to encourage a lot of you to maybe borrow it from your library or go out and buy this book. But before you do that, I want you to know that this book's not going to be for everyone. I will tell you though why I thought it was spectacular and why for me it was just one of them books that was perfect. I went into this series and I didn't have a clue really what the story or the world, the realm of the Eldlings were about. I just knew that a few people had messaged me and said, look, this is my Roman Empire, it's the best book I've ever read, the best series I've ever read, and I wish I could read it again for the first time. When I go into any series, fantasy series, usually I need a fast plot and good characters. If you give me both of them, I'm probably going to enjoy the book. After I finished reading The Assassin's Apprentice, I sat down like I usually do before I write a review, and I think, right, let me think about why I enjoyed that book so much. So I'm sat down and I'm thinking, right, what was the plot about? Then I was like, shit the bed. Nothing really happens in this plot. If I were going to try and sell this story to you on plot alone, it's basically a 6-year-old dude gets dropped off at a gate by a man. And this man's like, oi, this is the bastard child of the future king. What you lot don't know is that 7 years ago, your future king were a dirty little chuff and he went to some faraway land and he were mingling, let's say, with one of the ladies there. And this is the result of him not wrapping his penis. And the royal family are like, holy shit, now what do we do? So they take him in and they're like, all right, well, obviously your mum don't want you, so we'll have you. but we're going to have to keep this quiet. Your dad don't want you. You're just going to have to live with the stable master. So this dude called Burrich takes him in, who's like the stable master, and he's like, right, you just shut up and go and play with other scruffs in town. So Fitzchivalry, who's the 6-year-old kid, for the first part of the book, he's just kind of going around this town, making friends with Molly and other poor people, and he's just trying to find where he belongs, because he's like, no one loves me, everyone hates me, I just want to be loved. And he makes stupid decisions through the story, because again, he's just trying to find where he fits in life, and he just wants someone to love him, the poor dude. And then later on in the story, as he gets a bit older, this story follows him from being like 6 till about 14-year-old, I think. So as he gets a bit older in the story, he gets a little bit more kind of involvement with the family. They send him off to do certain things, to train to be an assassin, which is obviously in the name. And he goes on this little mission, then he comes back, and that's about all that happens. There's genuinely not much plot in this story. But where it excels for me is the fact that I'm not the kind of reader that looks for perfect writing in books, but Robin Hobb has a way of writing that just forces your eyes onto the paper. I couldn't stop reading. It was like the words were literally hugging me. I wanted to keep reading. Every time I got to the end of a chapter, I didn't look at the time. I just wanted to continue and continue and continue. And I don't think it's just the words. I think it's the way that Robin Hobb forces you into the mind of Fitz. Genuinely, as I was reading this story, I was like, I am Fitz. Everything that he went through, I felt. When he felt lonely, I felt lonely with him. I wanted nothing more than for people to love him. Like, it is so beautiful. I can't think of the last book that I've read where I was so in the character's mind. And bear in mind that this is a 6-year-old kid, that as I'm reading this, I'm like, I felt like a 6-year-old child just wanting a parent. And as someone that's got daddy issues, like, I just felt this. I was like, oh, yeah, I want a dad too. I want my dad to love me. And it was beautiful, just from start to finish. So what I'm trying to say to you is, if you're going to go into this book, go into it knowing that if you want to get the best from it, you're going to have to fully immerse yourself in this character and just get involved. Like, you're not going to get into this story and be taken on a mad ride. It's not a theme park. It's not crazy. It is slow. Some of the chapters are long, but it's just fantastic. I finished this, and usually when I finish a fantasy book, I have a break in between each book. I didn't with this. I literally put that down, pick this up, and this just continues where book 1 left off and improves. It builds. There's so many more characters that just are amazing. Look, Burrich, I think that's how Burrich. Anyway, I don't know how you pronounce all these names. The fantasy names, aren't they? I always get them wrong. Fitz and Burrich in book 1, I was like, these are class. There's a lady called Patience as well that I was like, I think I like her. There's another dude who is like training him to be an assassin. His name begins with a C and an H. I forgot what his name is, but he were alright. He were like nice sometimes and other times not. He were kind of like, he were being, what did they say? Cruel to be kind. He were that kind of guy. And then in this, you're introduced to Molly, who is like a little young child romance he's got in book 1, a bit more in book 2, and I love her. And then Ketrican, I think her name is, who is a character that you're introduced to in book 2, and she is my favourite character so far. Fitz he's got a special place in my heart, but Ketrican, absolute slay queen. She is fantastic. Yeah, I mean, look, all I'm going to say is, I know people have said to me, prepare yourself with this series, like, you're going to get your heart broken. All I'm saying is, if Fitz or Ketrican, or even Molly, get sent to Jesus, I'm writing. I'm not going to keep going on about this, because I feel like the more passion I put into this review and the more I talk to you about how fantastic this is, the more disappointed you're going to be if you don't feel the way that I do. I truly mean this when I say to you, it's not going to be for everyone, but if you enjoy books that are about like family dynamics, and it is more like a family political drama, in my opinion so far, than it is epic fantasy with massive wars. There is looming war in the background. There is a very simple magic system, which is about, I think they call it skill and wit. Skill is the ability to be able to like manipulate people's minds so you can kind of make them feel things like fear, and you can make them feel things that you want them to feel, or you can communicate through a bond. And then there's wit, which is the ability to communicate with animals. It seems like that's about as far as it goes, and I'm fine with that. I don't need this story to get detailed with a magic system, because the character work, the ability that Hob has to make these characters feel so real just is untouched. I've never read anything like it in my life. So yeah, go into this expecting more family political drama rather than epic fantasy. And if you like that, you're going to love it. Now we'll go on to book mail. So 2 things I got recently. This was a really cool book box that I got from Saga Press, which is the next book in the hierarchy, is it called, which I don't know if you've read it, James Islington, The Will of the Many. I read book 1 this year, really enjoyed it. I think I rated it 4-star. Strength of the Few, I got this through the post, and it was an absolute cock tease. I knew this was coming, but I expected a full book. They've sent me, which is what everyone got, like a little teaser, which I think is part 1 of the next book. And I'm going to read it, but that for me is just an absolute tease, which is fantastic, because what I'm probably going to do is read part 1, come on here, tell you like how fantastic part 1 is, and then be like, but I need to read part 2. They also sent me a cool little jigsaw in here that I did with the kids. That was fantastic. And a little card reminding me not to give any spoilers. I don't know if you can see that. I don't think you can. No, anyway, you're going to have to trust me. That card says no spoilers. Next up, we've got a book that I completely forgot about and I'm absolutely buzzing to read. It's called The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. And not only is the book absolutely stunning, the blurb sounds fantastic. We're going to read it together. As I've said to you in previous videos, I panic reading out loud, so just close your eyes, it'll help me a lot. There's going to be some words here that I'll mumble on, but it is what it is. After 24 years on the throne, it's time for Burson the Brusque, Emperor of Arun, to bring his reign to an end. In the dizzying heat of midsummer, 7 contenders will compete to replace him. Trained at rival monasteries, each contender is inspired by a sacred animal. Fox, raven, tiger, ox, bear, monkey and hound. An 8th, the dragon proxy, will be revealed once the trials have begun. 8 exceptional warriors, thinkers, strategists, the best of the best, but one of them is murdered. It falls to the brilliant but idiosyncratic Nima Kra to investigate. I don't know what that idiosyncratic word means. That feels a bit unnecessarily long, but it is what it is. Anyway, but as she hunts for the killer, darker forces are gathering. If Nima succeeds, she could win the throne whether she wants it or not. But if she fails, she'll be sentenced to her death, set in motion a sequence of events that could doom the Empire. From an electrifying new voice in epic fantasy, The Raven Scholar is a masterfully woven and playfully inventive tale of imperial intrigue, cutthroat competition, and one scholar's quest to uncover the truth. Hey, that sounds cool as shit, doesn't it? That sounds crazy. Very excited to read that. If you want to put it on your TBR, covers fit. You heard it here first. Yeah, if you want to buy books just for the cover, this is probably the one. Purple and pretty and stuff. Right, we'll get to the rest of this video now, shall we? I'll keep this bit short because these chapters are short in this book and stuff. As I said, kids are off. I struggle to focus on long books, so a lot of the time I'll pick up a book where the chapters are short. Maybe I already know the story because I've seen the film, and these are some books that I looked at today and thought, shall I just pick that up and try reading that? Because kids don't want to let me read epic fantasy. Firstly, Alice in Wonderland. Seen the films, never read the books. This is 2 in 1, so this is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass as a 2 in 1 book. I think it's really pretty. So I might pick that up at some point. I'm not going to go through like my thoughts and feelings on any of these books because I've not read any of them. But I'm hoping that if you've read them, you might say, Tyrone, that's spectacular. I can't believe you've never read it. That's the first one. Nextly, we've got Peter Pan because, again, I'm a massive Disney fan and I love Peter Pan. I always kind of get excited at the thought of reading a book when I've already seen the film just to see how big the differences are. And Peter Pan was one of my favourite Disney films growing up. So, and that's like a beautiful copy of it as well. Non-fiction. I do tend to read a lot of non-fiction when I'm on holiday with kids. Like when we go abroad, I read a lot of non-fiction because if I'm outside a pool, I can read a bit and I'm like, oh, I'm cleverer now. I really enjoy trying to learn more so that when my kids do go, Dad, how fast does a wolf run? I can go 42 miles an hour, children. And I don't have to ask Alexa all the time. So a couple that I've got on my TBR is The Faithful Executioner, which was the, like, basically years and years and years ago, I think it was like in the year 500 or something, it's probably not that far back, but anyway, it's like bare time ago, they found a diary of an executioner, and he'd written down the history of all the executions that he did, how he did them, and a lot of stuff that they've never found anywhere else. And this is meant to be like a really detailed account of the stuff that they did back then, and some of the ways that they executed people were horrific, some of the reasons that they did it, and how they executed women different to men. Really fascinating. I'm really looking forward to reading this, and it's not too long, it's only like 250 pages long. So this is The Faithful Executioner, Life and Death in the 16th Century by Joel F. Harrington. So 16th century, so it's obviously not like 1500 years ago. Tyrone, you're such a fucking idiot. Next up, we've got The Palestine-Israel Conflict by Dan Cohn-Sherbock and Dawood El Alami. I picked this up because I'm really interested in learning more about this conflict. It's one of them things where it's obviously present day, isn't it? This does affect us now, and I think a lot of people will try and pretend that this isn't happening because it just makes us feel shit about ourselves, isn't it? You know, we get, I think sometimes as humans, especially in the West, sometimes we get upset about stuff like, you know, I don't know, next door neighbours screaming and stuff like that, or you just silly stuff. Someone doesn't let us pull out of a side junction in car, we're waiting too long, and then you try and remind yourself, oh, actually, there's people getting displaced and bombed like indiscriminately, and I want to learn more about this kind of thing. I think it's important that we don't just block out this kind of stuff just because it makes us feel like shitty humans. I'm not going to say I can change the world, but I think what I can do is at least try and learn more about this, because they're not teaching this at school, are they? Like, I would like my children to know this kind of stuff, just because I think, especially in England, you get a lot of people who are like, oh, send back these immigrants. And I just think, firstly, they're idiots, just having that mentality, because a lot of people don't realise why immigrants come to these countries, come to England, go to America, to Canada, Australia, because they're seeking a safer and better life. And I think by reading this kind of literature, it can make you a better human, and it can just remind you how blessed we are to live in the part of the world that we live in. I thought this one was really interesting though, because it's co-authored by a Palestinian and an Israeli. So I'm hoping that it's not going to be too much of a biased review on one side or the other, because they both had to kind of come to an agreement that, yeah, that's fair, that's what we'll write. So super excited to read that. I'm not going to say excited because it's not a nice topic to read, but I think it's an important topic to read. Next up, we've got a couple of romance books, because I find romance really easy to read. I've never read Emily Henry before. This is Book Lovers. No idea what it's about. I'm guessing it's about some people that love books, and I'm guessing they're a boy and a girl because it's on the front cover, and they're riding boats and stuff. Then we've got Kennedy Ryan, Before I Let Go. Never read Kennedy Ryan's work before. I believe that her work is maybe a little bit more serious than like your Emily Henry's and your Abby Jimenez's. Their romance is like a little bit more cosy, cutesy, fun. I really enjoy them. I don't know if Kennedy Ryan goes into like darker themes, and as a author of colour, I would assume that she's going to touch a bit more on how being an author of colour, but also characters written of colour, how their lives may be a bit different than a white character written by a white author. So interested in reading that. Another one, this is a weird one really. This has been on my shelf for a while. So this is Zodiac Academy, The Awakening. Now I know I said before that when I'm struggling to concentrate I don't read much fantasy. This is technically a fantasy book. I think it might be under the bracket of romantasy, but it sounds really fun. Now I did actually try reading this about 8 months ago when my mental health was really poor, and I couldn't do it because these twin sisters who are human, in like a human world, get dragged into this different world, and it is a world where they find out that they are actually Fae. So they've been dragged into this world and they're told, you're actually Fae, you're not human, and you could come on, or go on at least, to be one of the strongest Fae people ever. And in that world there's a school, we'll call it like Hogwarts, and even at the bottom it says, damn, why couldn't I have gotten a letter to Hogwarts? So they go to this school and they're told, right, you could be proper like kick-ass bitches, but you need to go through this school, you need to learn how to be hard as nails, But in that school, there's other things like vampires and wolves and shit and all sorts of scary stuff. But I remember reading it, and there were loads of bullying right at the start of the book, and I was just like, look, my mental health's not up for this. I can't be bothered to read a book where I'm getting annoyed at these boys bullying these girls and them not sticking up for themselves at the start. So I plan on reading this at some point. One of the only reasons I've not picked it up is because the books just get thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker. But book one just seemed like a fun time, other than the bullying. I just like the idea of two twin sisters going through this portal, we'll say, to this other world where there's wolves and vampires and fae. And like, I don't know, it just feels like a poverty Hogwarts. And I'm all for that. Sounds fun. But I think as the series goes on, there's like more and more and more shagging and stuff. And I'm not that bothered about sex in books. I've said it before, I don't get it much at home. I don't want to read about it in books. I'll just get jealous. Then, lastly, Chris Carter. I know I've recommended this man before many a times. Crime is where I tend to go to when I can't concentrate on anything else because I find it's quite easy to consume. And Chris Carter, for me, is the ultimate bingeable crime author. And it's always between him and M.W. Craven, but I think I lean slightly towards Chris Carter a little bit more because he's a little bit more graphic in his novels, and I'm a bit sick and twisted. So when I read crime novels, I do like the murders that take place to be disgustingly horrific. So if you're into horrific, gruesome deaths in your crime novels, Chris Carter's your man. The next book I need to read in the series is this one, The Caller. That's where I'm up to so far. These are in order. Like, you don't have to read them in order yourself. That you can read them out of order. They can all be read as standalones, or you can read them in order. The only benefit to reading them in publication order is just that you get a little bit of backstory when it comes to character development and stuff. But if I'm totally honest, Chris Carter, the author of these, doesn't crazily go into much character development when it comes to Robert Hunter, who is the lead detective, compared to the Washington Post series by M.W. Craven, where there is a bit more character development with Tilly and Poe in that series. But yeah, that's it. As I said, I needed to do this video today to get me some fresh air and just a breather. I've done it now. Now I need to get it all edited and up so you can watch it. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Again, I've not planned this video. There's no script or anything, so I've just kind of blagged it. I hope you enjoy that kind of content as always. If you've not already subscribed, please do. I'm going to go downstairs now and support the wife and looking after these fantastic, beautiful children of mine and cook some sausage and bacon sandwiches. I love you so much. Bye for now.